But moving on, we talked about it a little bit last week. I saw this in my Twitter feed right before the AEW pay-per-view in Los Angeles. We were talking about it. We've talked about it many times here, AEW, and how they just have an exorbitant amount of matches for their pay-per-views. Their pay-per-views are like 4 hours long. And at one point, people said, hey, they only have like 2 pay-per-views a year, so it's not horrible. But as AEW is moving to, essentially 12 pay-per-views a year or pretty close to it, they still are keeping the same length of time. And somebody... when I put out the poll, most people said they have too many matches. Some people said that they have just enough. But somebody commented and said, I want more matches. And the reason they want more matches is because these pay-per-views cost a certain amount of money, right? And I want more bang for my buck. So it kind of made me think about what exactly is that? With WWE, right? We haven't had a pay-per-view in over 10 years when it comes to us here in the United States, right? We have the WWE Network, we got Peacock, we got Netflix, we have all these things. The last time any of us had to drop $30 or $40 for a pay-per-view has been like a decade ago, which is crazy to think. AEW obviously still has the pay-per-view model. UFC still does pay-per-views. But it makes me kind of wonder, especially in the AEW, or not the AEW, the WWE world, because we know how much AEW charges and that they do the pay-per-view model. But with WWE pay-per-views kind of being very unique lately, all right, 4 matches at the Royal Rumble, 4 matches at the Elimination Chamber, lots of commercials in between. It makes me kind of wonder if the pay-per-view model was still in effect or came back into effect in the world of WWE. What exactly would drive you to spend $50? Brandon, Elimination Chamber, it is $59.99. That's what I'd imagine it would be, right? And nowadays, right, it's pay-per-views, would obviously go up in price. I can say the last time I saw a pay-per-view price for WWE, because they did exist, was I think as late as last year's WrestleMania, right? Not saying anyone's buying them, but they still exist. You can still buy them, and I think it was like $69.99 a night for WrestleMania. I don't know if it would have been more if it's one night, right? But they were charging $70 a night, like on DirecTV in the United States. Again, don't know who's buying it, but it's there if you don't know how to use technology.
But it exists.
So Elimination Chamber, the pay-per-view that just happened, going into it, not knowing the heel turn for John Cena, let's say this thing is like $59.99. Would that have been worth your money? No, not knowing elsewise, not knowing how... pay-per-views existed all along. You don't know about the WWE Network. It never existed. These pay-per-views cost $59.99. What is it exactly would make it worth your $59.99? What would you have changed? Would you have kept it the same? Give me some insight.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because, I'm just going to say this full out on the record. I've never paid for a WWE pay-per-view in my entire life. Before, when there was the pay-per-view model back in the day, I'll just give shout out to my dad. My dad always, he forked out the cash. Like we would do like we'd go to my uncle's house. We get a bunch of people. We all throw a couple bucks in, get food and all that stuff. And then after that, you find your ways to do it. I'll just leave it at that. Over the years, I've honestly never paid for a WWE pay-per-view. I don't think I've ever paid for a pay-per-view in full price. But for me, it has to be to a point where, from start to finish, it's really intriguing. It's something that gets my juices flowing where I'm excited. This is really good. I don't need 12 matches to justify the cost. I want to be entertained. I would say 3 hours is a good number for me. 3 to 4 hours tops is a good number for me. I don't need more matches for the sake of matches. Like I know you mentioned that one of our lovely followers that mentioned that. Shout out to them. That's their choice, and that's fine. We all like things a little differently. That's completely fine. I don't need 12 matches, and 8 of them are useless to me just to justify the cost of $59.99 kind of thing. Like I think
it's interesting. It's interesting nowadays, right? Because of the fact that the WWE Network essentially and the Peacock and all that exist, and that there are so many advertisements now. So it's not just about 4 matches, right? It's about how the 4 matches last 3 hours because they didn't used to, right? Elimination Chamber was a pay-per-view people bought for $45, $50, 10 years ago, right? It was the last pay-per-view event before WWE turned over to the WWE Network so that they could get your pay-per-view money one last time before the WWE Network started in full in 2014. And I think the last price of it was probably close to $50. It was a 2.5-hour pay-per-view, started at 8 Eastern, ended at 10:45. And it had 2 elimination chambers, probably 3 or 4 other matches. But now, obviously, with this elimination chamber we just saw, it's a lot of padding, right? A lot of advertising, a lot of breaks. If that existed still, like let's say again, this elimination chamber existed, and yeah, let's say it's $50, but you're splitting it with other people. Maybe you have to go out to a bar or restaurant to watch it. However you're doing it, because I've done it all those ways. Split it. Go to Dave and Buster's. Go to the Hooters back in the day. Go to the Buffalo Wild Wings. Fork over some money with some friends. Those kind of things. And I guess my question is would the advertising be it, because it's a turnoff right now to a lot of people, but it's not so much to me because again, I'm still getting the wrestling and I'm not paying that much for it. But would that be a turnoff for you and your friends if you were dropping $50? Like, would you be like, hey, we should have a tag team title match in here and not Cricket Wireless ad?
No, not necessarily. I think for me, I don't have to, like I just mentioned, I don't need to have a bajillion matches. Like, I don't need it. If they got to put commercials in to maybe keep the cost where it is, I'm fine with it as long as it's not a 10-minute commercial set. Like, I'm so programmed, growing up, growing up in the same era that we did. You're used to waiting through the commercial for 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and that's fine. Anything over that, I'm kind of like, nah, I'm good. Here's the thing. To me, it's not a bad way to break up, the matches. Like, I know AEW, like, they go from one thing to the next.
Now, I guess, so here's the question, right? AEW, we all admit, or at least us two, and most of our poll followers, say that too many matches, right? So there's definitely too many matches on the pay-per-view, whatever way you slice it, whether it's, even if they go one after the other without breaks, I still think it's too many matches. So what would you rather have? If you're paying $50, right? You're just blanketly looking at a pay-per-view. Let's say AEW does the pay-per-view the way that they do it now, but maybe with like 6 matches. 6 matches, no promos, 3 hours or under, right? The matches quality that they have, right? The cage matches they have, the championship matches they had at like Revolution, but 6 matches, right? So it starts at 8 Eastern, ends at 10:50, right? Keep it under the 4-hour mark, under the 3-hour mark if you can, right? So just get rid of the matches, but the same flow, the same, no promos, no commercials, just match after match. Or like you're saying, would you rather have the WWE model where maybe it's, four matches, but way more commercials? Or is it all about what your investment is in those matches?
To me, it's about the investment in those matches. And also, additionally, too, like, you want to be able to get up, go get a drink, go get a bite to eat maybe, or, use the restroom kind of a thing. Like, I know you could pause it, but I guess for me, it's like, when I watch the WWE product versus the AEW product, like, I like the fact that I don't have to pause anything. Like, okay, I know the WWE match is over. They're going to do something for, a few minutes. I can go up, use the restroom, get a drink, get a snack, and then, I sit back down, match is about to start. Where AEW, it's like, to me, it's like, if I do that, I might miss something, per se.
Some people obviously say the point of a pay-per-view is that you already know the matches. We don't need the promos. We don't need the video packages and stuff like that. So just get us the matches. Stop giving us the pre-show during the show. And I can understand that. I do, though, think, and maybe I'm just trained to it, with the whole WrestleMania 17 and the Daniel Bryan promo right before his match with Triple H at WrestleMania 30. I'm kind of, even though we've seen the promos before, I just feel like right before the match, that last minute hype. I don't want a long promo. I don't need to really like dissect every single match from start to finish based on their history. But I think some of those like music video promos right before the matches, even if we've already seen them before, are pretty good. And I will say this much. I do agree with some of the AEW people where they say, we don't need those because we have obviously got to this point. We got to the pay-per-view. We know why Daniel Bryan or why, let's say, Cope and Jon Moxley are fighting for the title, right? But I will say one thing WWE used to do, they don't do it so much anymore, but they still sometimes do, and that's have exclusive promos. And what I mean by that is there were some video packages for pay-per-views that I saw only on the pay-per-views. A good example was, like I said, Daniel Bryan and Triple H. Their little promo before their match at WrestleMania 30 using the song from Imagine Dragons, or even at that same WrestleMania, I think it was a Eminem song for Bray Wyatt and John Cena. And they had promos on Raw and SmackDown showing why they're fighting, but that specific promo with the music and stuff was like an exclusive for that. Like I was seeing it for the first time kind of thing. So I thought that, those are unique. So we know the story, but maybe like a pay-per-view exclusive promo. We're not just replaying the promos that we did to sell the pay-per-views, where we told it long form.
Here's where I differ though. Like, let's be honest. And maybe this is just me, and that's fine. I can't say I have say 5-6 hours a day, to watch every single wrestling show that your company offers. So for me, those promos in between the matches set up like, I get like a 5-minute clip of what, maybe things I saw, yes, but there might be some things that I missed, just so I know what's going on heading into that match.
I think that would really work too with like UFC, because I'm somebody who I don't really watch any UFC nowadays, but even when I did, I watched only the pay-per-views and only knew of the main stars from the pay-per-views. I wasn't watching the Ultimate Fighter or the weigh-ins or any of those kind of press conferences. So I did need some of those promos, especially for not the main event, of like, who are these people and why I care if they fight. And what is even the welterweight belt and who had it and how long have they had it and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I would say the same. I do bring some people to pay-per-views where they don't know about the wrestlers, and maybe they know about some wrestlers and not others. Maybe they haven't watched since the last time I took them to a pay-per-view. So they do need that little bit of a recap on who's who and why they're fighting. I do agree. I will say when it comes to AEW, and I'll say this much, Tony Khan, listen, whether I will actually say this to you, because I've gone to Dave & Buster's before and obviously I've gone in person to watch AEW pay-per-views, and I've gone to Dave & Buster's where they play them locally and around the world and around the country to watch for free. Obviously, if you go and so you don't have to drop $60, right? So I've gone to Dave & Buster's and stuff to watch a pay-per-view here and there, and I will say that I don't have that sentiment in the sense of I need 10 matches, 11 matches. I went to AEW Full Gear back in November, and if they took 2 matches off of that pay-per-view, I not just wouldn't have noticed, I probably would have actually had a more favorable view of the pay-per-view. I would have actually liked it better. I don't know which 2 matches, right? It's hard to tell. They all have a purpose. But the point is, like, to the person that says, I want more matches because I want to get my $50 worth, I actually might feel, and that's why WWE is so hot right now, I think, because you feel, especially with Monday Night Raw now not being that mandatory 3 hours, you feel when things are more organic and things kind of fly by, it leaves you wanting more, and you don't feel ripped off. You feel like it's okay if you're left wanting more, in the sense of you are satisfied. It's like when you go out to eat, you don't need to be stuffed. You just need to be full, right? You might still want more. Hey, on the way home, let's stop at the gas station and get a candy bar for dessert, right? But you don't need to be like sickly stuffed where you then like wish you never even went to that restaurant. You want to just be to the minimal level of satisfaction.
You just want to be satisfied comfortably.
And that's why, like, Monday Night Raw, as of this whole year, since 2025, and they moved to Netflix, has been as good as it has been. And that's why SmackDown's been struggling, right? SmackDown, a lot of people used to love, and they wondered why. Why is SmackDown struggling? SmackDown's struggling because they're trying to fill that 3-hour time inorganically. They're trying to just push that time a little bit longer than they used to have to before. And I think AEW, right, they got another pay-per-view, Dynasty, coming up. They're not going to do it. They're going to do whatever they do. But I have to say, put on the matches that AEW puts on. Your 25-minute, 30-minute bloodbath cage matches. That's great. That's your thing. That's how you tell your story. It's the alternative to WWE. I'm glad it exists. I don't want everything to look the same. I wouldn't want AEW to look like WWE because that's what TNA tried to do back in the day. They tried to have a bunch of overhyped superstars that were name recognition and just have 10-minute main event matches like WWE. The problem is we just didn't care as much. It felt like WWE light, right? That's why TNA didn't really do so well with Sting and Jeff Hardy and all those people at top because it just felt like they were riding off WWE's coattails that whole time. But so AEW, keep doing what you're doing, but do it in shorter increments. Because like I said, I went to that Full Gear pay-per-view, and I've never before left a pay-per-view event kind of early. And I did this for both the Sting one and I did it for Full Gear. And not what I mean early, I stayed for the full matches. But when things started to drag on after the show where they're starting to do like segments and Tony Khan's on the microphone, or like, after Full Gear, they were starting to do a little more of like the Christian run in and that kind of stuff. I didn't have time to stick around. It was like
Like,
such an
oh.
exhausting long night. And with WWE, I'm not like at WrestleMania when Cody's celebrating in the ring last year. I'm not leaving. Like while he's celebrating, I'm there. I'm not trying to rush to get out of that arena.
Yeah,
But
you're satisfied enough.
with full gear, I'm like, all right, I can't stick around for any of these final last minute run-ins.
But you already
or
got
Tony
your
Khan's.
fill. That's what it is.
Yes.
You got your fill.
When Tony Khan comes out at 11:55 on Eastern time after a Dynamite taping and a Dark taping and a Rampage taping and a Collision taping, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to have one more conversation with you guys," it's like we gotta go. Enough's enough.
Like,
So I have to say, Tony Khan, Dynasty. I don't know what the prices are. I think they're around $50 you're charging for a pay-per-view. You can put on less matches, and I don't think anybody will think less. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if less matches actually draw more people like myself, right? To maybe go to a Dave & Buster's because of the fact that, hey, I'm sitting at a restaurant. It gets kind of boring sitting at a restaurant for 5 hours, right? They don't even want, even though they know you're there watching the pay-per-view, they're still like, hey, are you going to take off? You know what I mean? If you're not going to drop another $100 here, you kind of, wasting our time kind of thing. So make it good for everybody, right? I feel like it goes by quickly. I feel like I got my money's worth, but at the same time, I don't overstay my welcome, whether that be in the arena or, watching it in public. So what's quality? What do you want for pay-per-view price? What you just want is matches you care about, a digestible amount of them, and it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter about the number. I will say, the commercial thing is something else, but it doesn't matter about the number, and that's why WWE right now is doing as good as they are because it's not about the number.
They get it.
They get it. It's not about the number. I'm very curious to see what WrestleMania does look like when we get to it. Last year, I think each night had 7 matches apiece. Obviously, we're coming off of 4 match pay-per-views, like 6 months in a row. So very curious to see where we go from here. But AEW, now that you're having pay-per-views like once a month, every couple of weeks now, I think it's time you scale back a little bit, just like you did with the crowds and the stadiums that you chose, in the 20,000 seat stadiums down to the 5,000 seat stadiums.
Less matches.
You can scale back on the matches as well.